I am going to show you a couple of new techniques, not what I showed you last time. This paint is about out, so I'm just going to take the lid off and actually dab it on because it's probably about finished and headed to the trash, but I just wanted to use up every last little bit. I'm going to roll this out, and you may have not noticed the first time I showed you that I always lay my brayer upside down so that this is on the table and it's not resting on this soft brayer side. And when there's paint on it, it obviously keeps it off the table. So I'm going to show you today some subtractive methods. Subtractive means that you're taking the paint off instead of adding it on. So I'm going to use a Q-tip. I showed you where those were last time. And I'm going to make a design with the Q-tip. So I'm just going to draw some lines, some shapes would work as well. These papers would also be great for collage, so if you printed some different patterns and things on there, that would also work to cut up and use in a collage. I do that a lot with those notebooks like we made at the very beginning of the year for your writing notebooks. That's where a lot of these papers that you were using in the special stuff came out of, okay? All right, this is wet. Let me set it against that for a minute, and then we're gonna go ahead and print this off. Remember, if you write on it with words, it will come off backwards. So unless you're really good at figuring out ahead of time how you're gonna write a word on there, then you probably wanna steer clear of words for now until you have had some practice and think about it before you do it. All right, let's pull that off. And so you can see how the Q-tip, where it took the paint off, that's why it would be called a subtractive method, because you took it away, okay? All right, let's do another one. These bags are over in the the printmaking center in that purple basket that's along the top shelf as well. There are all kinds of great things in here to use. So let me show you a few of those so you can see some of the possibilities. This is a paper that was it's embossed is what it's called. It's like it's raised design on it. And so when you roll your paint out, you can actually like press it on and lift it up and stamp into the paint and pull some of that paint back off. This is a really cool one to try. The same thing with this grid. This grid, you would not be able to lay it on here and print through these teeny tiny holes. So I use it to just like stamp onto and pull the paint off. This lace stuff, lay it on there and you kind of, rub it gently and then pull it back off. It's just got a more delicate, I guess, look to it. This is a piece of wallpaper from a wallpaper store book that they were gonna pitch and I saved. It's it's a grass cloth type of wallpaper is what it's called. And I use it the same way I just showed you those others. You would press it in, lift it up, and it would leave the impression of that in there. This corrugated paper is really fun to make lines with on there. It's kind of pretty on its own, actually. That'd be really fun to cut up in a collage as well, but that's not what it's for. This wallpaper also has sort of a diamond pattern on it, and it is raised up. The little lines are indented in. That's another one. Here is a tiny squares almost, and it's got kind of a soft little texture to it. This is actually handmade. I made a bunch of these one year. They are just foam shapes that I glued on in a pattern on here, and it's just on a piece of cardboard, so it's, not gonna matter if it gets paint on it or not either, so that's kind of a fun one. And they're different in each bag, so you might get a bag out that's not, like this has got a number 1 on it. This one's in bag number 1. This is called shelf liner, and it also, you press it in, make a pattern. And then this stuff, I don't know what it is. It's some sort of like plastic kind of netting stuff, and I cut it up and some kids really like it. So you can try that out. And then there's a few other little odd bits and pieces in here that I just collected that you can stamp into the paint with. This was cool because it was a star shape. And then obviously you have circles. This is just an old lid from a marker. And then this is a cork. Now the cork, you can use this side, or I glued kind of an interesting pattern button on the other side, so you kind of have double-sided that you could use, okay? So that's kind of what's in the bag. I'm gonna use a couple of these to show you a few other prints. So let me move this out of the way. The Q-tips can just go in the trash when you're all done with them. If you want to use it more than once, obviously keep it and reuse it because, you can draw in it again. If I still have paint left on here, a lot of the times I won't pick a color that is opposite on the color wheel, like purple and yellow would make like mud. So I'm not putting something that's far away on the color wheel from it. Instead, if you look at the color wheel, blue is on one side of purple and red is on the other side of the purple. So I like to kind of stick with colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, because then if they do end up mixing, it turns out okay. The colors mix beautifully. Okay, they're called analogous colors if they're next to each other. You can still see the lines from the purple in there, so it'll be interesting to see if that also prints, because sometimes it does. All right, this is really cool paper. So you can put these on here and just kind of press it lightly and then lift it straight up. And then I'm gonna do 2 on this one, so it kind of gives you 2 for 1 here. And I'm gonna put this plastic grid on here. Press it gently. Try not to let it slide, okay? And you can already see maybe there that there is texture in both of those. Hopefully that comes off on the camera. And then I'm gonna go ahead and roll my extra paint on the back here, because nobody will see the back. Ooh, it's really pretty though. If I don't like the front, I may end up using the back. You never know. Cut it up and use it in my collage instead. Ooh, it did pull off. This is what's cool about Gelli plates. You get the lines from the purple on there, but you also can see the texture from the flower print and the grid print. So that is why I love Gelli plates, because it kind of gives you like unexpected surprises, and you just never know what you're gonna get, which I think is why it's exciting to do. All right, I'm just gonna sign these both, and then let's go on to another one. Now I used red last, so now I could go back to purple. I could still use red. I could go to orange. It's mostly cleaned off, so I could probably use any color I wanted truly, but let's do an orange. Leave that facing up. Let's do the squares this time. So again, you're just like stamping it on top, pressing it firmly in, and then lifting straight up, okay? And there you go. Okay, and so there even was still a little purple left again and a little bit of the red. So this is called a monoprint, first of all. Means that you get one print. You couldn't make this print again if you tried. Like this purple and this red, it's not gonna happen in the same exact spots again. So that's why they call it a monoprint. It's one print, and that is why it's called mono. Mono means one. All right, now the last thing is to print with the objects that are in the bag, and so I'm gonna show you that next. Rolling out my blue. This, if you didn't notice on some of those other things I showed you, I tried to put numbers on some of the things. Like this has a number 1 on it, so you know this is the one that goes in bag number 1, so you can kind of help keep it organized and not lose the pieces or have double of things. So I'm gonna use this as that big ring from canning jar lids. This is the marker lid, and I'm gonna just kind of overlap on some and fill into the empty spaces on others. This is that cork with the button on one side, and it's just the flat on the other side. The star would be cool, but I don't have a whole lot of space left for that. This is that little eraser. Don't forget about that you can overlap and go along the very edge of the print or the Gelli plate, and it will print like it's on the edge anyway. Okay, all right, so let's lay that on there. Let's see what we've got. Okay, and off camera I had made a green print before this, and so you can see some of the green paint came off with the blue, which again to me is like a happy accident. I'm like, I like that. So I like when the other color is kind of left on here. All right, so that is the subtractive method, and you now know how to do that with the tools in the bag, okay? One little tip I might tell you when it's time to clean up, these may still have a little bit of wet paint on them if you had just printed with them. So you may want to just let these lay out on your table while you go clean your brayer and your Gelli plate.